there, it's Marley. Welcome to my best books of the year video. So I'm going to be talking about my top 10 favorite books of the year 2023. These are all 5-star books, and honestly, I could not put them in an order this year from like my 10th to my absolute favorite. So I'm just going to talk about all of them in the order I read them, and just know these are all faves and these are all 5 stars. If you didn't see my worst books of the year video, I just posted that earlier this week, so be sure to check that out after this video if you haven't already. So starting out, I did read The Box in the Woods by Maureen Johnson earlier this year for like a 5-star predictions vlog. Obviously, I was right. This is the 4th book in the Truly Devious series, which is a YA like mystery thriller series following Stevie, who is a young up-and-coming detective. She loves true crime. The first 3 take place at a boarding school and they all follow the same mystery. But in this one, Stevie takes on a new case at a summer camp. So her and her friends go there for the summer to try and figure out this age-old mystery from the past, this cold case. It was just so fun to be with these characters again. I find with Maureen Johnson, like these obviously deal with like murder mysteries and like serious topics, but they also can be very fun and funny as well, which I appreciate. That's why I look for YA thrillers, young adult, to have that kind of more fun energy, but still get the creepy Mr. Murdery vibes too. Stevie's also a great rep for anxiety, and honestly, I can say that this reveal, this mystery really took me by surprise. So if you by chance read the first 3 books and didn't feel like continuing, this is me telling you that you should. I would recommend this book and the series. Continuing on our YA thriller train, we have 5 Survive by Holly Jackson. You no doubt have heard me talk about her books before because I love them. This is her first book outside of the A Good Girl's Guide to Murder trilogy. It's a standalone where we're following this group of friends in an RV driving through the woods, and then they get stopped and held at gunpoint by this mysterious like stalker killer person. So these people are trying to survive, trying to escape, and also trying to figure out who this person is that is trying to kill them, or at least one of them. All of them have secrets which are being revealed throughout the book. It's very fun. If you like the tropes of like a group of friends stuck somewhere, isolated somewhere, and then secrets coming out, then this is perfect for you. And I feel like I have not heard enough people talk about this book this year. It did not get as much hype as A Good Girl's Guide to Murder did, and I feel like it should, because it is just as good, even if it's very different and has a different format. It was very exciting, very action-packed though. If you don't like constant twists and turns in action, then this probably won't be for you, but I absolutely loved it. Of course, we have to talk about Carrie, Soto is Back by Taylor Jenkins Reid. You may be sick of hearing about her, but I have to praise her. Taylor Jenkins Reid comes out with such interesting stories. They are so unique. They're always focused on some sort of celebrity, or at least her newer ones are. And this is focused on a famous tennis player who has actually been in retirement for a few years, but she was this like record holder, really impressive player, and now someone is coming for her title of the most grand slams or whatever. So she decides to buckle down, come out of retirement, start training again, and try and defend her title and win another grand slam. It's a book that shows her whole life, so you're seeing her career originally, how she got to where she is, the relationship she had with her father, who is also her coach, which is very touching, her relationships with the other players in her league. She has a romance as well. The character work is great. She is not necessarily a likable character. She can definitely piss people off and be very, full of herself and stuff like that, but it's very entertaining to read. Even as someone who doesn't like sports and doesn't like tennis, it was very interesting to read about this tennis player, and I learned a lot about tennis as well. Maybe a little bit of a divisive one. Up next, we have The Only One Left by Riley Sager, my thriller king. If you don't want twists on twists on twists, then don't read this. But if you want a really twisty book, you have to check it out. It is a really cool gothic setting, as you can see on the cover. We're in this creepy old house where this family was murdered years ago. There was only one person left alive, and it was the daughter Lenora. And she has lived in this house her whole life. She's now an old lady, disabled, like very old and sick kind of thing. And she gets this new caretaker who is our main character. Lenora decides she finally wants to tell her story to this caretaker caretaker that she's kept to herself all these years of what actually happened to her family, because people think that it was her, obviously, as the last one standing. But she finally reveals what happened all those years ago. So you're seeing the different timelines. We're finding out more about this family and the different people who have lived at the house, like the housekeepers and stuff, having so many twists that it was so fun. Again, if you get overwhelmed by too much going on, maybe this isn't for you, but if you want a twisty story, this was so good. Riley Sager's writing is so addicting that I always read his books in like one sitting. All right, another book I've talked about a lot, but that was The Raven Boys by Maggie Stiefvater, the first book in the Raven cycle. This is a YA fantasy from quite a few years ago that I never got around to despite the hype, but I'll tell you, this is hyped for good reason, and it holds up till now. Like, I would actively recommend this book, even if you're an adult, even if, you know, it's 2023. This is still so good because the characters are so good. If you like found family, there's such interesting vibes. It's a paranormal book. It deals with magic and the ley lines and like psychic powers, legends of like dead kings and dreams. There's a lot of stuff with like dreams, and it's just so great. And our main cast of characters is great. We have Blue, our main girl, and then her group of Raven boys, and there's a bunch of different, you know, relationships between them. It's also so funny. I keep saying, like, the writing is really funny. There's a lot of good lines, just amazing. And the rest of the series, I don't think I gave the rest of the series 5 stars, but this first one was, and I think I read it in like 24 hours. So clearly pretty good. Then we have, I guess, my favorite romance of the year, and that was Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez. I don't often give 5 stars out to romances. Normally they're like 4 or 4.5 at the most, just because it's not my favorite genre. But this one I actually felt compelled to give 5 stars by the end. I just feel like I got so invested in this couple. We're following these 2 doctors who work together and actually don't get off on the right foot when they first meet. So it's a little bit of, you know, not enemies to lovers, but like they don't get along. And then they start bonding through writing letters to each other. It's this kind of slow burn friendship, and then there's fake dating. They decide to fake date, so we have that forced proximity. It's like we go through so many tropes with them, but then you see them actually grow to care for each other so much. And our main guy, I think his name was Jacob, was just such a sweetheart and like such a great hero to follow in this story. There is kind of a trope at the end that you wouldn't think I would like, but I honestly was just here for it. Like, I was just really sold by this story. So if you're someone who doesn't typically find yourself loving those typical romances, rom-coms, like maybe this would be something a little different for you. It just really connected with me. I would recommend. Next up, we have another YA book, and that's Radio Silence by Alice Oseman. Of course, the iconic author of Heartstopper, but this is one of her full-length novels. It's about a main character who is a little bit different. She doesn't quite fit in with everyone. She's very studious. Her best friend's her mom, and then she's also really just obsessed with this podcast. So she's a little bit of an outcast, and I think if that was you growing up, or if that's you right now, you would really connect with this book. She does end up creating this friendship with this boy named Alid, her neighbor actually, and it's just really about that friendship that they have and how they both are kind of outcasts but find this kinship together, bonding over their love of this podcast. There's queer elements as well, if that's important to you. I just really love her writing. The only other full book I've read from her is Loveless, but I'm gonna go back and read all of them because they're just so real. Like, it doesn't feel like, you know, an adult that's out of touch writing YA. Like, this feels legit, you know what I mean? So very good. Guys, I was editing this video and I realized I totally forgot to talk about one of the books on my list, and that was Swordcatcher by Cassandra Clare. Now, you could say, if you forgot about it, is it really one of your favorite books? No, it is. This was 5 stars and I really enjoyed it. So I did just want to insert this clip here. This is one of my top 10 favorite books. This is an adult fantasy, the first adult fantasy from Cassandra Clare. It's about this character, Kel, who is an orphan, but then he gets pulled into the royal family because he looks a lot like the prince. So they want him to be the sword catcher for the prince, which is kind of like the bodyguard. You'll pretend to be the prince in certain situations, so he will get killed instead of of the prince. Kind of not the best situation, but still he gets to live in the castle and like get a lot of perks from being with the royal family. So we're following his story in this like fantasy world. We're also seeing another character named Lynn, who is part of the Ashkar community. So they're kind of like outcasted in this world because they are the only ones who still have magic. Otherwise, magic has been banned and like destroyed throughout this world, but the Ashkar people do still have some magic. So she is a part of that community. She is learning to be a healer, and their paths kind of end up intertwining, and they end up finding out a lot of like dark secrets about this world. There's a bit of like a mystery of like different things going on like in the shadows. It's a lot of like political stuff going on with these like noble families in this world. It basically has a lot of like fun fantasy tropes that you would like if you like fantasy, but it's also pretty digestible. I mean, Cassandra Clare's writing is always very enjoyable for me, even though there is a lot of info dumping, and it was a little overwhelming for the first couple hundred pages. I do feel like it's worth it in the end for her character work. The plot doesn't get too crazy till the end. I feel like a lot of this book was just setting up the world, setting up the characters and the relationships, so that might bother some people, but not for me. I mean, I'm a pretty character-based reader, so I enjoyed that. She of course has some good ships in here, and I think there's a lot of potential for the rest of the series, so I just had to give it 5-star by the end of the day. There was a lot of action at the end, some twists, and some cliffhangers, so I had a really good time with this, and I did want to mention it for my best books of the year video. Not too many people have been reading it, I feel, so I think you should give it a chance. Then we have Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. And honestly, if I was gonna pick a favorite of the year, maybe it would be these last two, or I don't know if it's just because I read them the most recently, so they're in my head the most, but this is an adult fantasy novel, dark academia, very dark, but so cool and so interesting. I just have such fond memories of reading this book in October. We're following a girl, Alex Stern. She has a really dark past, like with drugs and stuff like that, and she has a certain power, and because of that she gets recruited to Yale University, which is known to have all these like secret societies that deal with like dark magic. It is her job at the school to kind of help out these societies, keep them on track. She's kind of like a guardian for them. In town, this girl ends up murdered. So we also have this murder mystery going on because Alex suspects that her death was involving one of these secret societies. So we have this really cool murder mystery. We have all this paranormal, like occult stuff going on, ghosts, magic, multiple timelines, which at first was a little confusing. Like, I'm not gonna lie, there was a lot of info dumping and it was told in kind of a weird, complicated way. But once you get into it and wrap your head around everything, I feel like it was pretty fun and just like so epic by the end. And the characters, and it was super funny, very good like comedic stuff in here too, just perfect. And the last book to talk about, I feel like I went through these so quick, sorry about that, but I've talked about them all before. So we have Lisa Jewell. None of this is true. I absolutely, like, if Riley Sager is my thriller king, like she is my thriller queen. And this plot, okay, when I talked about it before, I kind of struggled with it because I don't want to give anything away. I feel like something that's so good about her books is not even like the initial like synopsis, but it's like her writing, you know what I mean? Like her writing just makes you care so much about these characters and the story. And again, I could just read it in one sitting. I think I did read this in a day. But we have this podcaster and she decides to go on a different kind of track for her next podcast when she gets approached by this other woman who's like, we're birthday twins, we should be friends. And she suggests that she follows her in her new podcast because she's trying to like change her life and improve her life, and this girl's podcast is all about female empowerment and stuff. So she's like, okay, like I'll learn about your life and follow your life for my next season of my podcast. So we're learning all about this girl's life, and there's a lot of dark, crazy stuff in this girl's life, but then it's like there's different like secrets and stuff being revealed. This girl's acting very like creepy. It's really hard to discuss, but like there's so many twists, and honestly sometimes Lisa Jewell's books aren't super twisty. Like sometimes they're a little bit predictable, but I still love them anyways because the writing's so good and all that. But I feel like there actually genuinely are surprising twists in this, which was really awesome to see, along with her great writing and all that typical stuff. So I think if you are gonna read a Lisa Jewell book, she has a ton, but this is definitely one of her best, I would say. say, and definitely one I would recommend picking up. And the podcast element, I know we're kind of getting past that as a society, as a community, but honestly, it's not annoying in this book. It's worth it. One of my faves. Okay, I guess that's all for my favorite books of the year. Let me know if you read any of these and if you love them, or let me know one of your favorite books of the year. And I think this is my last video of the year too, so make sure to subscribe so you can see all my videos next year. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your year and great New Year's. Okay, I'll see you next time. Bye!